Welcome, everyone, to the Aging and Spirituality podcast, where we want to discover what the unrealized potential is in our lives and your life. Today, we're going to be discussing something that I have been writing about this past week, and I entitled it The Gentle Art of Helping Others Awaken Spiritually. And I have a lot of interesting thoughts about this particular subject. So, hello, I'm Kathy Lee Taylor, and this is
Chris Jensen, hi.
back with you again. And I'm going to start with just talking a little bit about, after the near-death experience I had at 35, what happened to me is, in a way, I kind of became insufferable. I'm going to say that, tongue in cheek, but I kind of wasn't. I didn't realize it at the time. And then, the benefit of hindsight, as you look back and you go, I was so adamant about wanting to talk about and just scream out what I had seen and felt from that particular experience. It was overwhelming in that way that I didn't have the ability to step back from it. I was just really tied up in the whole experience. And I was sure everybody needed to know what I had seen.
Mhm.
They need to know what I've seen and they need to know what I've learned. And it was just like being on a mission, you're like, on the mountaintop, and you want to scream it. But you could see what I mean. I was kind of obnoxious.
Mhm.
Yeah. So if any of you personally experienced that, I apologize. I'm better now.
Mhm.
So so anyway, my intentions were good. They just weren't effective. And it's kind of important that I realize the effect that I was having on people at the time, because, in wanting to share that joy and that awakening, what my enthusiasm did was kind of awakened a response in other people that was like a defense mechanism, because my attitude, when you look back at it, was kind of implying that who you are, just as you are, isn't enough. Because you need to know what I need to know and how great you are and blah, 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 blah. And a lot of time, their response was resistance. It hindered them from being open to me. Not Chris, she got me. Oh, not a problem. But I can see that in hindsight now. So, maybe having an NDE should come with kind of a warning sign like, caution, this person has good intentions, but you might want to barf or slap her.
You need the NDE manual, right?
Exactly. Might just want to slap her. So, but what it did was, I was thinking about it this week, and I was thinking this is an interesting thing to talk about, because as a coach, as a leader, as somebody that is interested in helping other people, just as being a friend and a good human being to other people. This is an important experience to kind of process and understand, how it works when you're sharing your spiritual experiences and what that can feel like to other people's current way of lifestyle. It can feel really
Mm.
right. And I learned that the hard way. um and the switch that I kind of made inside myself was that, you know, leading by example is a much better way for people to see how it works in their lives. Okay. So if your life reflects joy and your life reflects peace, that's testament enough. They can look at you and figure out that's where I really want to go. How do I do it? You know, what does she do? I mean, because, Chris and I can remember back when we looked at our teacher and we decided we wanted to learn from this person. And that's because I remember thinking, I want to get on the train he's on. Wherever he's going, that's where I want to be, because I wanted to emulate those qualities. I wanted to live the way, he was telling the stories of how we could live. It seemed like such an optimal way of being as a human being. So be an example instead of being a preacher, or a teacher, or somebody that's trying to lord over another person with their experience and their way of life as being a better way is such a more interesting way to go for
Well,
people to learn.
it's like with little children. They learn by example,
They
not by
do.
what you tell them, but by what you do. So
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
thing.
That's the same thing. And aren't we all like children when it comes to spiritual learning? We're all like little babies, We're
Yeah.
all like children. We're trying to figure this out. What the heck is spirituality? Oh, and that's not an easy thing that somebody can teach it in a way that you can get it, you know? So anyway, people really need a safe space when they're exploring their inner depths, their inner potentials. And it really is an area in life that is little understood, and it's hard to know who to trust, you know? Like who have you ever met that you thought, wow, that person is spiritually where I want to be, and I would trust them to tell me where they're, you know, how
Mhm.
they got, what their needs were and all of that. Like I feel that way about Chris. She's been a mentor and teacher my whole life, but I can't say there's many other people besides my, you know, teacher that I feel that way about. So real important to be an example in life when it comes to spiritual growth, spiritual awakening. So that, of course, brings up the question of how do we create that space for exploration, whether you're a coach or you're just being a good friend to somebody, you know? I've had to learn this skill as a coach, which means I learned how to create a safe environment for people that they can feel open and safe and be vulnerable enough to really dig into who they are and express that authentically. That's such a personal process, such a vulnerable place to be. So people, you know, as you know, in your own experience with your friends and people that you work with, they need to be seen and heard, you know, they on a very deep level. And a lot of people have never had that experience, even from childhood. Like, you know, look into your own life. Have you ever felt like your parents, your siblings, your, you know, people were actually seeing and hearing you for who you are? I
Living.
mean, as a kid, you didn't know, right?
Yeah.
You didn't know either. So really, deep listening and a greater awareness of compassion for others has to be developed when you're working in the spiritual realm. No doubt about it. It's so vulnerable and it exposes one's emotions. And a lot of time people don't know how to communicate their emotions. So you have to have a great level of empathy and compassion for them. Um, Okay, yeah, I was going to say it really is a societal failing that we do not teach
Mhm.
kids or how to deal with their emotions. That's one thing that if I could have an influence on schools and communities, it would be to show kids how to deal with their emotions. I know there's a lot more happening on a child level now, on a school level now with that, and that's a good thing. So one must also know how not to judge on any level and act as a listening source of support and guidance. This one's tricky because a lot of times we think we're not judging, but
And we
we
are.
we really are. And one of the keys is if you find yourself you tell yourself you're deep listening to somebody, but in your mind you're thinking what you're going to say next. You're thinking,
Mhm.
I'm going to respond to what that person just said right there because I know that they're wrong right there. They're wrong. I know the right answer to that. You're not listening. You're not in the right place for that. You definitely are judging, and that is a skill that is very worth working on, especially when it comes to the spiritual realm. No doubt about it. Um, when you are not judging, when you are holding space for somebody to grow and just being open, that gives them a sense of where they need to return to, that place, that centered place within inside themselves where they feel guided by their inner wisdom. That's what you want to inspire in them as a spiritual person. Instead of looking for the answers outside, you want to inspire them to go inside and look for those answers in there, because that's where they're going to get the satisfying, fulfilling answers to their questions, because their lives are completely unique and their characters are completely unique. And taking that journey inside is what's going to help them understand all of that. So good listeners take on a role of the witness, which we talk about here a lot, and we can't say it enough and we can't teach it enough for you to really, get overwhelmed with it
Yeah.
because it's such a critical skill. We need to be able to mirror back to people what they're saying so they can hear it in their own ears, in their own words, and they can see themselves in the situation that they're in and how they got themselves there. because if you tell them, they're going to have defenses against those words. They're not going to hear it as well as if they can hear you repeating back to them their words, mirroring back to them what you just said, what they just said. Then all of a sudden they go, whoa, okay. They understand clearly where they are standing on a particular issue, and they can deal with it. And they can, whether it's letting go, whatever it is that they need to transform, now they have the awareness of where they are stuck, literally, and they can make a change at that point. So typically that kind of information too, when you're listening to somebody deeply and having to use, no judging and compassion at a very deep level, you're dealing with an area that has frightened the person in the past. It's typically pain that has been buried, sometimes deeper than others, but it needs to come out. And a lot of time it is somatic pain. It's stuff that's been stored in the body over experiences, over their lifetimes, over their childhood years, and it needs to be healed and let go of. One thing about the body, if you've done any body work, as you know, if you have energy trapped there, it's going to keep circulating until you acknowledge it and let it go. So again, spiritual work is so vulnerable, and it requires much, much love to navigate. So remember that even when you're dealing with your friends, especially when you're dealing with your friends and your loved ones and your family. So we can do, I put in here doing a heart opening expansion. I think I'm probably talking long enough that we can leave that to the end, or leave it off to the point. I wanted to talk about how to also respect people's different paths and their different timelines, Oftentimes, like having an NDE experience, you think, wow, if everybody just had this, it's kind of like plant medicine. If everybody just had a little psychosyllabi, whatever that word is, they'd have a push forward in their spiritual world, and they'd be a lot farther along. Guess what? You don't know the right timing for them. You don't know what's going on in their worlds, and only your maker, your creator, knows that answer. So you want to just be aware that people have different needs, different timelines for their spiritual journeys. Whether you're a coach for them or you're a friend, just respect that. Don't push past that. That's not your job to do. You really, as someone that's awakening spiritually consistently, you want to master the art of surrender and letting go, and anything that doesn't serve you. And that's something that you can generically talk to people a lot about when they're in a stuck position without being judgmental. That's a skill that you can offer that is going to be good for them no matter what. And this is what really leads to a state of being called, what we call freedom, personal freedom. It's also essential when you're helping people awaken spiritually to wait for those people to ask for help. Maybe not with the words, but maybe they're in a crisis situation, whatever it is. Let them come and ask for help, because that puts them in a place where they're ready to grow. When they're asking for help, that's the best place, especially if you're coaching somebody. If they're not at that place, it's going to be really hard to get them there. They have to have the intent. It's really hard when a person is suffering, especially when it's a friend. It's hard to see them, and you want to so badly just give them, a basket to float them down the river and make sure that they're okay. And sometimes it's just not your job to do because they're not ready. So just be aware of that. Just be aware that they have to make the decision, set the intention to be able to make the manifestation happen, to be able to have that transformation come into their lives, because spirit's not going to push them like that. They have to be ready. They have to be ready to receive. Yeah. And, if you do push, you as a coach, you're not going to be successful. As a friend, you might hurt your relationships. So just be, aware of that when you're helping somebody as well.
Sometimes you just need to listen to somebody.
Yep.
That's
Listen.
all. Yeah.
And that is, I'm glad you said that, because that's really where I've come to in my whole world of thinking about coaching. Literally, that's all I have to do is sit there and listen. There's very rarely when I have to, um, actually respond. Mirroring back is really, really important. If the person's at a crossroad and they're ready decision, they're ready to jump, then there's things that you can do a lot of the time, on the spiritual path. It's just listening so they can hear themselves talk. They can, you know,
Mhm.
so they can hear the words and they can process it and they can do what they're going to do on their path. So, you as a person that wants to help others grow spiritually, you can really best assist them by being that presence, radiating an openness to spirit.
That's the
So,
big thing.
so seekers can really experience it and decide whether or not they're going to adopt it for themselves. It's really about growing all on your own, which is why, Chris and I love this path because we'll never not be on it. This is who we are. This is what we do. We grow. This is what a yogi loves, is to be able to keep expanding their presence and their ability to be present. So ultimately, you can't force someone to be on a spiritual awakening path. It's really a personal transformation that's going to unfold naturally. You really are just again, a conduit, a listener. You have to wait for that person to request help. But um, there are tools that you can use, like telling stories. Like if you're staying in the present, spiritually awakening as much as you can, being centered as much as you can, being present as much as you can. Telling stories is an excellent source of relating spiritual experiences, as long as they're authentic and relatable. They're if they're yours, they're shared with love and you've been through them and they're personal to you. Those are the best kind of stories to
Yeah,
help.
there's nothing like a personal story that communicates better than anything.
And we know that over the years, we befriended each other for years. And every time we get into a stuck place, it's like, oh, well, I remember when I was going through this, and I can relate to what, she's saying, what she has gone through, and that helps me get through stuck places. And that is really one of the best things about being friends on this path and having like-minded people. And really that was my last point that I wanted to make, is that it's so important on the spiritual journey to have like-minded people in your life to grow with. You need them as sounding boards. You need to be able to, learn how to share with them and practice
Mhm.
being presence and holding space for them. Just the art of learning to hold space,
Mhm.
creating people can grow is really, really important to develop as well. So that just about ends what I wanted to say. I've come to the journey in my life is like I've realized that the people that are really interested in going where I have been will find their way into my orbit. And if not, I don't suffer anymore thinking, I'm not being of service.
Mhm.
Go find them. I gotta go. I gotta
Yeah.
go. I gotta go
Mhm.
do this. I gotta go do, I gotta find all these people and help all these people, like that warrior kind of attitude. I don't anymore. I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like if somebody needs my help, they'll find me. And of course, I leave myself open and available and all of those things. But they will find you. That, it's one of the reasons that I offer the coaching services in the first place. It's not something that I'm just looking to have as a business or whatever. This is my service to the world. So, I hope that the people that resonate
And
with me,
you are an example. Your life is an example for people,
whole life is an
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to really reiterate that. It isn't like I've been on the journey for a couple of months. Chris and I have been doing this since our early 20s.
Mhm.
That's a
Yeah.
lot. In case you figured that out. It's a long time. But we have a lot of stories to tell, a lot of experiences to share. And just remember, the most important thing is being loving and supporting people unconditionally.
Yeah.
And the rest is really going to unfold organically. So, all you
Yeah.
spiritual seekers, thank you for coming and being with us today.
Thank you,
And
guys.
we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.